and I'll help Paul. Paul, what if I do this, the technical stuff, and if you want to introduce yourself?
Plug this in right there.
I got it. You got it. There you go.
Good. Thank you so
Tell us
much.
about yourself, my friend.
Oh, well, it all started when I was a little boy.
Really? You were a little boy, too? Wow.
I'm afraid so. People don't believe it, you know?
What
I
a
mean,
con-
look at me now.
Yeah, look at you now.
But, you know, honestly, to tell you about myself, this is Berkeley. I love this place, and I love speaking at Berkeley. My stepfather was on the faculty. Sorry. Let's try that. And yeah, I don't know what we do with that. You can deal with it. And so I sort of grew up here, and I have 2 degrees from here. When I was looking at law school, I signed up for a program called Cal in the Capital way back in 1978. This would be, oh yes, that looks like Berkeley, all right.
I'm just amazed that it's actually just working.
Well, I tried to set it up in advance.
It never does.
Yeah, that's right. The only thing is, somewhere in here, I have a presenter, and I don't know what I've done with it, because it's hiding behind your thing. We got it.
Here, let me help you.
No, I got
Need
it.
a second pick? Go ahead, yeah.
Okay. Right.
Okay, you're good.
We're in business. Thank you so much. I thought it would be a good idea to get a job in Washington. This was the Carter administration. And a friend named Bob Ferber, a partner in crime of my adolescence, said, "Oh, you're going to Washington. You should look up my brother John. He's a government scientist with the Office of Technology Assessment." And I did, and we've been friends for literally 40-odd years. It's kind of cool. After 20 years of listening to John Ferber's crazy ideas, you know, like solar energy, right, or custom-made software in India, things like that, I kept rejecting these, and I thought, yeah, why, John, be real. And one day he started talking about longevity, and I was all ready to reject this crazy idea, just like I had all the others that would have made me mountains of money if only I'd listened to him. And I thought maybe this time I should listen. And this is what I'm doing here. International House is the dome up there. We hunted all over the place for a picture of Berkeley that would show the International House. If you ever know anybody who's coming to Berkeley, tell them to live at iHouse. It's the best place around. So the reason I'm telling you this story is, oh, come on, do something here. All right, this isn't doing its thing. But the reason that I'm telling you this story is that man is a storytelling animal. And the way that we tell stories, oh, I see. Steve, you unplugged me. How could you? Well, just plug in the white thing and I can use my clicker, okay? No, just that thing. It goes in there.
Oh, that?
Yeah, that thing, the one you unplugged and didn't tell me about.
You know, what do we say about AI and our aging or something like that?
Yeah, Ray Kurzweil, I heard him say it in person. AI is easy and AV is hard. So yes, there we go. Now I'm wired. Thank you, Steve. So yes, well, it wasn't hard for you. In all events, man is a storytelling animal. I was talking to Gail yesterday about this. Man may be the only storytelling animal. We have given up on all the various reasons that we think that we're unique in the world. You know, tool use, well, crows use tools, all kinds of animals use tools. Speech, well, you know, who's to say that whales don't speak? But the one thing that we have still held for our own is the ability to tell stories. And it is a very important part of who we are, where we came from, and where we're going. If you can't tell a good story, nobody wants to hear what you have to say. So we have a situation with longevity where right now we're kind of mired in science and people have forgotten how to tell stories. Now, that wasn't always the case. I mean, the oldest written story that we have is the Epic of Gilgamesh. And this wasn't about some impossibly strong demigod who was out there vanquishing his foes. It was about a friend who lost his beloved friend Enkidu, and he went down to the underworld to bring him back, or tried to, but he couldn't. Okay, we also have the Bible. Now, the Bible doesn't really talk about the elimination of death or the extension of life. It just offhand mentions that Methuselah lived to be 969 years, and a lot of the others did too. There was a period in the Bible, assuming you take the Bible as accurate, where lots and lots of people lived hundreds of years, and any of us would be overjoyed to get an extra 50. So these are human stories. This didn't stop. We have modern authors writing science fiction who are talking about, say, Lazarus Long, who lived, I don't know, who knows how long. But this is science fiction. And the problem that we have right now is that we got to transcend that. You see, we have a problem with this, that we're stuck in the lab. Radical life extension, whatever you'll call it, longevity, is becoming real. You spend 5 minutes in this hall, talk to anybody you can, you'll know that this is coming, it's happening. We had a television reporter in here yesterday who kept saying, oh, so you believe that this is an act of faith, this is an act of science, it's happening. And the television show, by the way, aired last night, and you can find it at KPIX online. It's brief, but good press is good press. The trouble is that the public, like this television reporter, doesn't really understand what we're doing. He's kind of short-sighted in that regard. And Steve set him straight, and I set him straight, and I hope everybody else that had a chance to talk to him set him straight. And in doing this, we were telling the story. We were telling him what he needed to know. Now, when you say longevity, most people think science fiction. They think expensive tech for billionaires. They think, it's just biohacking. Eat right, go to sleep early, and don't drink too much, and you'll be fine. And then there's the other ones, living forever sounds terrible. What am I going to do with my time? Or, this is just, what are we going to do to feed people? If everybody lives forever, the world will run out of food. Well, that's not really true. It all works. And even the people living forever may decide at one point that they don't want to anymore. That's their choice. Let them do it. But the arguments that are being made are not rational arguments. And so we have to tell the story that counters those arguments. You see, longevity has a public perception problem. And the public perception is created because those of us who are doing the hard work, the frontline guys, people like everybody in this conference, they are not telling the right story for Joe Sixpack, shall we say, to be able to understand it. And that's where we come in. You see, what is missing from the mainstream narrative of longevity? Well, there's certainly enough of it. I mean, look at this. These are not new magazines. They're old ones. Some of them go back to 2011 when I started collecting them. There's a lot of press out there, but what is not getting across is the story. Are we moving from that? Scientists, storytellers. Look at these two magazine covers. One from last winter, and the next one just recently from Discover Magazine, which is owned by Disney, but puts out some credible stuff. If you look under the D on the left. You notice that the tagline is science that matters. That's what matters to us. But by spring, they changed it. I didn't make this up. This isn't doctored. They changed it to stories that matter. And I don't think they did this just as a one-off in the spring. I think that they're going to continue with this because, again, telling the story is more important than knowing the underlying stuff. Now, scientists in this room, many of you are my friends, dear friends. Look, it's important what you're doing. This is the mechanism. But if you've ever looked under the hood of a car these days, you don't see an engine. You see a big plastic sheath that looks kind of like an engine, and it covers over the actual engine, but it looks good. People get it. They look sexy because, hey, that's what people expect. They don't need to know what a valve train is. They just need to know that it looks like a cool engine. Now, what we're needing to do here is to create a shift towards a more human-centric story. I mean, we have fear of aging, Okay, never mind that. We'll solve the aging problem. How about being good at what you do for another 60 years? A surgeon or a psychiatrist or somebody, a craftsperson, who doesn't have to give up their art at the age of 65 or 70 because their hands don't work right or their mind is going dim, but who can take the accumulated wealth of their knowledge, pass it on for 50 more years, 100 more years, or indefinitely. That's a narrative that hits home with the guy on the street. The same thing with elite science. Ray Kurzweil, who I love quoting, Kurzweil once said, the rich always get the best technology first, usually before it's perfected. And I like that. I think it's wonderful that rich people are doing the testing for us, If they want it today rather than waiting 20 years, guess what? In 20 years, it will be cheap enough for the rest of us to afford. Now, many of you probably remember the first cell phone. It was big, it was heavy, it was clunky. It made phone calls. That's about it. I don't think it even had a calculator attached to it. And it was functionally useful for only one thing. But you had to have a lot of money to buy it. Nowadays, more people have access to a cell phone in the world than have access to a toilet. Yes, you should say something. You should think about that, Maasai herdsmen in Africa are selling their cattle or calculating their herds based on a cell phone, a smartphone. But 30 years ago, 40 years ago, you had to be wealthy and have a reason to be able to carry a phone around with you. I remember my first cell phone. It was plugged into my car because the battery pack was so heavy that we had to run it off the car battery in order to get power for it. Not anymore. I got one in my pocket, and I'll bet you do too. So these are the kinds of narratives that we have to talk about. I can tell you how this cell phone works, sort of. There's all kinds of technical terms behind it, and I could tell you about that, sort of, mainly because I'm old enough to remember when these features came in trickling one by one like they came from heaven. And now everybody takes them for granted, and nobody cares how they work. They just know that they do. And that's the narrative. So there we are. You see, good marketing, well, people get it wrong. People think that good marketing is manipulation, that there's the car salesman out there trying to sell you a V8 engine when a small four-cylinder will do it. That is not really true. Good marketing is not manipulation. Good marketing is actually translation. You take information that somebody doesn't understand and you give it to them in a way that they do. Now, my friend John Ferber, his brother Bob, who indirectly got me into this crazy field 20-odd years ago, had a wonderful job. Now, Bob was not an engineer. He was not management. He was a sax player in a ska band. But he got a job at Seagate Technologies because he was really good at the translation. Bob could go to the engineers and talk to them in their language, and he could go to the management and talk to them in their language, but the management couldn't go directly to the engineers because they didn't even come close. It would be like speaking French on the one side and Bantu on the other. Bob managed to translate, and he had a very nice job. This was his day job. The management would come and say, we need something that does this, this, and that, and he'd go to the engineers and say, okay, here's what management wants. I'll translate it for you. What do you need? And they'd tell him, and he'd go back and translate it to management. Translation is important. But there's one other thing, and don't look for the slide because I don't have one for this, but there's one other thing that is really important. That is evangelism. We don't just need people who speak the language. We need people who can convey the story, who can get people fired up, who can get people excited, and who will take that story and make it their own and tell it to other people. That's where we start to reach critical mass, and that's where you guys come in, all of us. I've seen so many brilliant scientists deliver dry data, and then it's up to the rest of us to explain why it's important. And boy, that's fun. I'm not a scientist. I don't know what the heck I'm talking about, but I can tell the story, I think, I hope. I haven't seen anybody get up and get out of here yet. So what we need is human stories. We need classic marketing techniques. Now, I'm pretty good at marketing for I mean, I could sell you anything if I had to. Hey, I once marketed chastity belts at the Renaissance Fair, believe it or not. And there's somebody in this room who knows that. And I'm not fingering them. So, when you know how to market stuff, you can hand somebody a meat pie and say, oh, you think this is just an ordinary meat pie? No, this is the best meat pie you will ever have in your life. And if you're smart enough to buy it right now, you'll thank me for it. Okay, fine. It's fun, by the way. So this is what we have. And we also have a need for emotional clarity. You got to believe your story. Is there anybody in this room that ascribes to the belief system that our television reporter had, that longevity is just something you believe in, like believing in Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny? No? I didn't think so. This is a kind of a select crowd here. So it's not just a belief system. You have to convey that you know that this is happening, this is coming. Thank you. And that's where we all come in. You see, emotion unlocks understanding. Take a look at this picture of these hands here. Build a story around it. Every one of you can build your own story, but the story is going to be poignant, I think. It's going to be emotional. If it were just, I see two hands holding each other, that's nice. No, I see an elderly grandfather holding his grandchild's hand at the grandchild's graduation from 6th grade, and he's so proud. That gets the story across, and it works well. So instead of saying, hey, we're reversing epigenetic drift, you talk about things like helping people to live long enough to meet their great-grandchildren. And this is the power of storytelling. And it's a wonderful thing because it's a power that we all have. I defy any of you to say you've gone through your whole lives without telling stories. Some better than others, but we all tell stories. It's what we do. It's a part of our nature. It goes all the way back to that dark cave with the fire in the middle of it. And what longevity needs right now, in addition to the science, which is the foundation of everything we do, it needs people like us to get out there and inspire the world so that they know that what we're doing is real. Now, some of the things we can talk about could either be raw science or they could be a little more emotional. Look at these two charts up here. There's a huge life expectancy gap, and it's not getting any better. Africa, in particular, is really suffering by that. But if you look closely at the second one, you'll see that it's the poorer countries that have achieved the greatest gains. In other words, Bangladesh or Mali, places you wouldn't think are making such huge strides, are making those strides, at least if the stats are right. I don't think this is an AI hallucination. I didn't use AI for this. So if you can just show people why this matters to them, it's important. I mean, longevity should be a human right. It is a human right. Nobody is going to say to you, you can only live 60 years. You live as long as you can. But the ability to live that long is something everybody should enjoy, and that's the kind of story we can tell. We can tell stories about legal, ethical, and moral implications, and I'm running quickly here now, so forgive me if I sound like I don't know what I'm talking about. I trust me, I do. We need informed consent before somebody can be told they're going to live a long time. We need structures. We need, for example, if you're cryopreserved, you're dead. You get revived. That's nice. You wake up after your cryopreservation and say, oh, God, I made it. I feel so wonderful. Where do I go now? And then say, actually, we're sorry, Mr. Smith or Jones, whatever, but you're dead. You don't have any rights anymore. Those died with you. We need to be able to do something about this. We need regulation that fosters both innovation and trust, because otherwise, why are people going to do this? Why would you even think of it? Now, we can do this ourselves, and we can tell the stories. We can create the stories. We can make this all work. Or we can leave it up to other people, the same way we did with, say, fossil fuels, nuclear power, AI. We can't let this stuff get ahead of us. We have to do it ourselves, and that's where we as evangelists, we as storytellers, come in to basically run the narrative in the way that is good, and not just something to be monetized by OpenAI or whatever. So we need a shift in our communication. You can look through this quickly. The Whisper Network isn't really all that great. Podcasts can say bloody well anything. So can Reddit. Insider terminology just brushes right over people. They don't know really what it means, so why bother? Same thing with technical terms. Instead, you create wider narratives. You do documentaries about how wonderful it will be to be 140 and going to your great-grandson's college graduation, or that you've spent a half a century mentoring school children because you'd made enough money that you could do that. You know, personal meaning is important. And mostly science doesn't convey personal meaning, so we have to do it ourselves. To those scientists here who are really great at conveying personal meaning, my apologies. I'm not trying to tar everybody with the same brush. And to the ones that can't really convey personal meaning, great. Give us the foundation. Give us the tools to work with, and we'll take it up for you. I'm a lousy scientist. In fact, I'm no scientist at all. But I can tell a story. And if you give me the right tools, I'll make sure the world knows what it is. See, longevity is not just a science project. It's a human story. We need to humanize the message. We need to market with empathy. We need to do the right thing. We need to build trust through ethics and law. And ultimately, scientists, we need to deliver the goods. And that's what we're doing. So longevity is a human story. And it's up to us. Let's tell it well. Because you see, what we're offering people is not a promise, not yet. We're offering them a possibility, and that's what we do. Am I under my 5 minutes?
Perfect, Paul. And another word for possibility is hope. And hope is a good thing. In fact, that's what my mother didn't get from her own doctors. They didn't give her hope. It's a very simple thing. You don't have to go to the formulary. You don't have to use any equipment. Hope is just talking to people, telling them a story, right? And yeah, yeah.
I would be hopeless without my loyal associate, Brianna Azevedo here.
You stand up.
For those of you who understand biology, you'll see the irony when I call her the third hemisphere of my brain. But she really is. She's very important to this. She's relatively new to our movement, although she mentioned yesterday that, oh, you know, I did some work with Martine Rothblatt back in college. I thought, really? Impressive. But you see, she was telling me a story that I didn't know. So there we go. Sorry about that.
Yeah, so another thing I just want to say that everybody here has made a difference because the money that we raised from this event actually is being used for science, and it's being used. There's a gentleman up there that runs the mass spectrometry lab here at Stanley Hall, that some of the money that we raised today will go to the laboratory to help refurbish well, you want to stand up, Tony? There you go, thank you. Will help to refurbish a scanning mass spectrometer. Some of the money will be used to revive a course that used to be here at UC Berkeley, but the course died along with its Professor Dr. Palatimeris, who the award was given to Dr. Campisi yesterday, and the award is named after her. And also to help Pierre's, well, to help Judy's lab, and Pierre obviously is the helper for that, to get that kind of have a soft landing. And so we've all made the difference here. So, and thank you, all of you, for being here. So please don't stop with this. I want you to do, as Paul said, tell people about what we're doing here. Now, you know, my talk mentioned, I think, it was 11 or 12 different theories of aging. Well, you know, I mean, I don't think no one person has the answer. Maybe there's some of those things, but, you know, at least you try. You know, that's the most important thing, is you try to figure out what the problem is and then what the solution is to that problem. So I just want to add that to Paul, who did a fantastic talk. Any questions? Yes, Irene.
Paul, I basically just have a comment that it is so incredibly important what you are doing, because in this meeting and in previous meetings, I realized that scientists have their own extremely confusing language and way to talk to each other, and most of the normal people do not relate to us at all. So do you plan to have somebody who will be like a translator from the dorky language of science to more, I guess, general understanding?
Yeah, another thing too is that we can criticize our work here, in a scientific community, but let's try at least when we go out in the public, because the last thing we want is for them to be confused, okay? So just kind of relay the message that we're working on it. Yes, of course, there's disagreements in method and this and that. We know that, we understand that, but try to kind of give a positive message to the public. We don't want to have any more confusion than there already is out there.
Yeah, and by the way, I want to make it clear, I am not demonizing anybody. I have an enormous amount of confidence in the scientists in this room. Some of you are my very dear friends. Some of you I've known for decades. You're doing the right work, and you're doing it in ways that some of us can't. Most of us can't. But we all speak different languages. We all convey information in a different way. What you say in French, what you say in Spanish may not translate directly into English, and God forbid you say it in Bantu or Serbian or something like that. You need to be able to talk to people in a manner that they understand. And the best science in the world improperly conveyed is still the best science in the world, but it doesn't capture the public attention. And we're at a stage now in our industry now where we need to capture the public attention and do a better job of that. This is not an indictment of science. It's not an indictment of scientists. It's just a recognition that we need to alter our language so that it's best received.
Thank you so much, Paul. It was a great talk. Thank you.